how do you see corporate healthcare evolving over the next 5 or maybe even 10 years?
In order to kind of answer the question, let me give you a little bit of data and let me give you a little bit of facts. It's no longer just the traditional group health insurance from an employer. We're seeing a lot of employers, especially smaller employers, start to make the transition from group to individual. There's a number of, I think one of the things that gets in the way of a lot of early stage founders, or we'll call it first time founders, is just that idea of that.
When scaling a health tech company, what qualities do you look for in executive team or, like you said, leadership hires?
Great question, Martin. It's really hard to find somebody that has experience in the health insurance and Medicare sector there's something called individual coverage health reimbursement arrangement. It's called an ICRA. There's something called QSERA. Here we are, we're sitting here on a video podcast, talking to each other, having a conversation, right? Still as humans, that's what we want. Our friend Gary Vaynerchuk, who, is very well known. He said kindness is the most underrated skill set in business today.
So how important is it for early stage healthcare startups to bring on experienced board advisors?
You should surround yourself with people that have been there.
How does service outside of business shape your leadership approach?
I think it's important for everybody to, be involved in.
Welcome back to another episode of Boardsi Leadership Talks, where we connect with visionaries reshaping the future of business and leadership. I'm your host, Martin Rowinski, CEO of Boardsi, and today we're diving into a topic that's become increasingly vital for companies of all sizes: the intersection of healthcare, innovation, and executive leadership. My guest is a powerhouse in this space, Drew Shockley. He's the co-founder of Move Health, a cutting-edge platform transforming the way financial advisors and their clients plan for healthcare. Drew is also an investor, board member, and former senior vice president of training and culture at EverQuote. From scaling startups to building leadership pipelines, Drew brings a wealth of insights for anyone navigating the rapidly evolving health sector. Drew, welcome to the show.
Martin, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. I don't get to talk much about the health sector, so this will definitely be a lot of fun. So speaking of health, let's start right with Move Health. What inspired you to build a healthcare insurance planning platform specifically for financial advisors? It's pretty specific.
It is. It's very specific. We are thrilled to really have this opportunity to solve what we call one of the greatest problems that exists for early retirees and people that are trying to move out of the corporate America environment into retirement or into kind of into their next phase of life. And so we have spent the last 20 years, me personally, I've spent the last 20 years in the health insurance and Medicare markets with various companies, multiple startups, and several successful exits thus far. But we wanted to build Move Health for a very specific purpose, and that's to help financial advisors who are sitting down every single day with tens of thousands of people in their 50s and 60s that really want to quit their job and move into the next phase of retirement, but they don't know how to do it. And so Move is a software platform that financial advisors can use to help predict the cost of health insurance for the clients that they're serving and help them move into that next phase of life. It's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And since we're talking about journeys, tell me a little bit about your personal journey and like what drove you through the years and where you ended up now. Like, was there any moment as a kid, a 5-second moment that you can reflect back on and be like, oh, that's where that idea came from?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I don't think anybody goes around as a kid here in the US thinking they want to be in insurance and Medicare. Like, it's not, we all want to be like professional athletes, or maybe you want to be a firefighter or a teacher or a coach or something like that. I was more in line with that. I thought I wanted to be a coach and really I love sports. I grew up playing sports and really kind of honed in high school and college and ended up playing college golf. So, sports were kind of my thing. I never thought I was going to get into insurance and Medicare, but I realized very early in my, I guess, adult life, late teens, early 20s, that I was good with people, and I liked people, and I liked talking to people, and I kind of got that from my granddad. My granddad was a dairy farmer, just kind of an old country guy growing up in East Tennessee, and he would talk to anybody. It didn't matter if it was the business guy that pulled up in the Maserati, or if it was the farmer down the road in the old beat up truck. He would just talk to him. And so I very early on, learned that I liked talking to people too. And so that served me well in my career, throughout the health insurance and Medicare industry, and then a lot of other things that I've been able to do, serving on various boards, nonprofits, for profits, university boards, and a lot of the experience that I've had, comes from just people. And that's the what I would consider, a really, really important skill set for anybody that's an emerging leader or somebody that wants to continue developing their career.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Getting back on digital health, it's a hot topic. How do you see corporate healthcare evolving over the next 5 or maybe even 10 years, especially in terms of data-driven planning and accessibility?
Great question. I talk about this almost every day. I think it's funny you opened the podcast a couple minutes ago and said, "Hey, we don't. Here's a topic we don't get to talk about a whole lot." Well, for me, I talk about it every day, which is good. I love talking about it. But in order to kind of answer the question, let me give you a little bit of data and let me give you a little bit of facts. So here in the U.S. today, we have about 330 million people who live in the U.S. And the data shows that almost 50% of the population, okay, so almost 50% of those 330 million have healthcare coverage through their job, through their employer. It's just been kind of a thing that's happened over the last 100 years that we all kind of come to expect healthcare from our job. Yeah, we want to get paid and we get a wage and it's, X per hour, it's X per year and you get bonuses or whatever. But a lot of people, take benefits, health insurance benefits from their job as part of their compensation. I unfortunately think that, that a lot of the value in health insurance and benefits that we have through corporate jobs has been lost. I think a lot of people don't realize the value, that they see. They see it coming out of their paycheck, or they maybe hear about it once a year at the HR meeting, but they don't really see the value and understand the value. But just going back to the facts, so 330 million people in the U.S., almost 50%. The number's staggering. Almost, it's 49 point something. Almost 50% are covered through their job. Now, 15%, 15% are covered by Medicare, which is, the federal government program. It's the one that we pay for. You have to be 65 years old or you can be disabled and you can get the Medicare program. But that's about 15%, 15% of the population covered on Medicare. That's a lot of people. Now, over the past 10 years, we've seen a pretty large expansion of Medicaid programs, which would be state-based low-income programs. We have over 20% of the population covered by Medicaid, state-based programs. And the Affordable Care Act and Obamacare and all that stuff, we don't have enough time for this episode, but it's expanded, the state-based, Medicaid programs, and there's a lot of people that are covered by the state on free or low-income programs. And then there's about 20 million people, which is about 6 to 7% of the population, 20 million people that actually go and buy their own health insurance coverage out by themselves. Either they're a 1099 independent contractor, or they're self-employed, or they work at a small business, or they're an early retiree trying to make that transition. And that's about 20 million people. And then the balance, Martin, are people that are uninsured. We still have, a number of people in this country that are uninsured. It's approaching the 9 to 10% range. So, 25 to 30 million people that don't have any coverage. It's pretty wild, but it's still the case today.
Still exists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how do I see it evolving? There's a lot of things going on in healthcare these days. It's no longer just the traditional group health insurance from an employer. We're seeing a lot of employers, especially smaller employers, start to make the transition from group to individual. There's a number of mechanisms that allow them to do that. There's something called individual coverage health reimbursement arrangement. It's called an ICRA. There's something called QSERA that came out under the Trump administration. Both of those did, and we're seeing a shift in companies continuing to offer benefits and moving them into the individual market. And we're kind of just on the tip of that.
Okay. Got it. And your motto is obviously tech-enabled, but human-driven at the same time. Can you expand on how that balance has shaped your growth and client experience?
Yes, would love to. I mean, I think we all, here we are, we're sitting here on a video podcast, talking to each other, having a conversation, right? Still, as humans, that's what we want. We want to interact with another human. We value that. We value conversation and expression and those types of things. And so, in my opinion, and I think there's a lot of data to back this up. You know, people, when it comes to making a decision about health insurance and Medicare, they still want to work with a human. They might use a technology or a system or a platform to get them, certain number of steps or down the road a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's such an important decision. It's such a measured decision. Mistakes can be extremely costly. It's so important to talk to a human that has experience and that is professional and that guides you to that final decision. And so we say tech enabled, human driven, because we start with the technology. We start with tools that we're putting in the hands of financial advisors, which then lead to clients. Clients engage with us through technology. We give them reports and analysis and those types of things. But ultimately, at the end of the day, all of the clients that come through the Move Health platform talk to a human, one of our licensed agents, before they make a decision and enroll in a plan.
That's awesome. That's a good blend. Very similar to what we've done. So I think that's the best way to go. Let's talk a little bit about leadership and startups. And I'm sure you fall right into it. Founders often wear many hats. What leadership lessons have you learned the hard way while building Move Health?
Yeah, great question. So Move Health is, as they say, is not my first rodeo, right? So we've learned a lot of lessons along the way. The first company that I started with my business partner actually was in 2008, and it was a direct to consumer agency that sold health insurance and Medicare plans to clients. We weren't, we were young. I was 23. My business partner was 24, and we just didn't know what we didn't know. We just got out. We had kind of a dream and an idea, and just started making stuff happen. But I think one of the things that gets in the way of a lot of early stage founders, or we'll call it first time founders, is just that idea of that everything has to run through me. I have to make the choice, or just me and my partners, just the owners or the equity partners or whatever have to make the choices. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs or founders end up hurting their ability to grow because they're unwilling to hire people and give them decision-making authority. And they're unable or they're unwilling to hire people and put them in a position of influence. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make, that you just have to pull it together, hold it in for as long as they can. And the reality is that's not the way that you scale. That's not the way that you continue to build a meaningful and growingful business. A lot of founders end up making a really good job for themselves. They don't build a company. They don't build a company that solves a problem. They make a really good job for themselves because they can't get out of the way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I got a great follow-up question to that. Speaking of scaling and hiring, when scaling a health tech company, what qualities do you look for in executive team or, like you said, leadership hires?
Great question, Martin. It's really hard to find somebody that has experience in the health insurance and Medicare sector with Affordable Care Act and CMS compliance and Obamacare, ACA, U65, pre-65, O65, like all of these things, and has experience in building a software company that relies on subscribers to pay a fee to be a part of your platform. Really, that person doesn't really exist. So we've always kind of, had the philosophy that we look for certain skills and certain character traits, and we can teach them the industry. So show me somebody with some confidence. Show me somebody that's a really good speaker or communicator. Show me somebody that has something to prove. Show me somebody that is kind and generous and has a good heart and wants to work hard. I can teach them deductibles and copays and all that stuff. So that's one of the things that we've learned, in scaling our teams and over the years. Find the person, find the character, find make sure you're aligned on values and skill set and the path forward. You can learn, the industry.
That's awesome. Yeah. You believe a lot of same stuff I do, so this is great. Because it doesn't matter about the industry, you can teach the industry.
Indeed,
Yeah.
agree.
The other stuff's a little bit harder to teach. And speaking of having experience, you've held leadership roles in startups, obviously, but you've also been at large organizations. How does leadership differ in those environments, and what have you carried over from one to the other?
Yes, this is an interesting one because, um, you know, th I have had experience in a number of different sizes of companies. When I started my career, I actually started working for Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield. I had about 40,000 employees. I was one of, several hundred agents that worked, kind of in the Midwest region. Um, I moved, quickly into building, my own company and a startup, and for the first 4 or 5 years, we only had, 7 or 8 people. We continued to grow, and scale after 6 or 7 years, we grew to about 20, 25 people. And then before we exited our company in 2020, we had about 70 people. We sold to a publicly traded company out of Boston, Massachusetts, which is a $400 million company that had 650 employees. Way, lots of varying experiences here. So, working for a small cap publicly traded company that was headquartered kind of in the Northeast, built from, a couple of guys from MIT that were roommates at MIT, and they were like computer programmers in the insurance and marketing space. Um, I've had a varying, mass amount of experience. And now, the market that we kind of, work with now, financial advisors and sort of mid to higher income people, it's been across the board. I've had a plethora of experiences to glean from. But the reality is, I think in every one of those situations, people wanna do business with people that they trust. People wanna do business with people that they can count on, that they can rely on, that, still just dependable, show up, work hard, do your best, like, those things hold true no matter the size of the company or the problem that you're trying to solve. Just be a good person. I think our friend Gary Vaynerchuk, who, is very well known. He said kindness is the most underrated skill set in business today, and people miss out on it.
That's pretty wild. I don't know that part.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Guess I just surrounded myself with kind people.
Yeah.
Lucky me. As
Yeah,
a
yeah, good for
invest
you.
Yeah. As an investor and board member at companies like Remodel Health, what do you look for before getting involved with a health-focused venture?
Another really incredible and influential author, speaker, thought leader that I work with that I like is a guy named Simon Sinek. I wish I worked with him, but I feel like I know him. But so he's an author, a thought leader, a speaker. Simon Sinek has a premise that was one of his first books. I think one of his very most influential TED talks, and it's titled "Start with Why." And, he talks about how, really every company has a purpose at some point. They start with a why, WHY, at some point, but only the truly great companies keep that why or keep that purpose throughout the life of that company or that organization. And so your question is, what do we look for whenever we're making an investment or wherever we're serving or want to latch arms with somebody or serve on a board or whatever? The why is really important. Why do you exist? What problem are you solving? Why do people want to work with you, or why should people work with you? WHY, Simon Sinek, start with why is a really, really important premise in any scale of company.
That's awesome. And this next question, I'm really looking forward to your answer. How important is it for early stage healthcare startups to bring on experienced board advisors, and what role should they play?
You should surround yourself with people that have been there before. There's no reason to continue to make the same mistakes or to stumble upon something that somebody else has already done. I think that your concept with what you're doing with your company and trying to match people with companies to help them, be influential, and whether they're a board of directors or whether they're an equity partner or whether they're just a guide or just a friend or just a mentor. There's no reason to make mistakes that somebody else has made. And people that have had some success or maybe had some exits, or just, most of them genuinely want to help, and they want to see you succeed, and they want to see you have success. When you reach a certain point of wealth and certain point of success, there's so much opportunity to make money. There's so much opportunity to build a great business that you just a rising tide, brings all ships up, as they say. I think that people are willing to help people that are trying to do something good, and bring people there, ask them questions, ask them to get involved, ask them to be a part of what you're doing in some way, shape, or form. Not everybody's looking for money. Sometimes they just want to help. And so I would recommend, early stage, whether it's health, tech, startup, whatever it is, bring people on, let them be your guides, test them out first, make sure you get to know them, but, interview them and bring them on, and let them influence your company, because you'll be better off.
Yeah, I always say it's better to start somebody as a board advisor before you make the big decision of actually putting them on your board. Get to
Absolutely.
know them.
Just be a friend. Yeah, become a
Yeah.
friend. Be friends. Make friends with people. Meet new people. Kind of like we're doing today. It's just keep doing that, and your circle will come together. You'll know.
Absolutely. And you also serve on the board of trustees at Oakland City University and with Pac Heidi. How does service outside of business shape your leadership approach?
I think it's important for everybody to, be involved in a mission or an organization that they believe in. I'll start with you went with Pac Haiti. Pac Haiti is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that's based here in the U.S. but does work in the country of Haiti. That country is in a really, really tough spot right now. Assassination of president, gangs taking over ports and major cities. There's not a lot of hope going on there. And one of the things that we do here in Pac 80 is we collect backpacks from families here in the U.S. and we ship them to Haiti to be given to kids that are going to school and trying to better themselves through education in the country of Haiti. So we have partners there. We've set up this organization. It's really simple to get involved. PacHaiti.org. You can go there. You can give. You can support a child. You can send backpacks to us. You can buy backpacks that we can send there. And, I love the work that we're doing there. I do that alongside of my wife. My wife is super passionate. We went on a trip there together, and she came up with this idea. She said, "You know what? I'm going to do something." And, we love the work that we do with Pac Haiti, and the way that we get to influence schools and churches there, and we get to partner with a lot of other organizations in the country of Haiti, which needs a lot of help.
That's awesome.
Yeah, one of my other roles is serving on the board of trustees for Oakland City University. It's a small Christian university here in Southern Indiana. It's a very difficult thing to be a small university in the U.S. today. So it's a private school. It's athletics are key. We have actually students that come from all over the world to study there. And, I get to serve alongside of the university administration, the president, his entire, leadership cabinet. And, we get to help influence that school for students that come along and the next generation of leaders here in the U.S.
That's awesome. Now, I got some advice questions for you. Many corporate leaders are now tasked with overseeing wellness or healthcare benefits. What advice do you have for executives trying to navigate healthcare strategy without a deep background in that space?
There's so many resources available today to help you guide and make decisions. Make sure you've got a trusted agent, a trusted broker, a trusted firm, a company that you work with that is confident in delivering a solution for you. But there's a lot of innovation going on. There's a lot of ways that people can reduce healthcare costs. And it's not just, take a generic prescription and, go to the doctor less. There are a lot of really, really innovative things that are tied into stress management and sleep and lots of things that you can do to influence, the health of your company. I would encourage you to do that. Read, search for resources. There's tons of stuff available, and just continue to be innovative in what you offer. People need more education. They need to understand it. Bring speakers in to talk about health and wellness and working out and and being active and sleeping well. I think that if you live here in the U.S., we work hard. We don't take vacation. We do lots of things that are like not good. I would encourage you to if you're a benefits leader at a big corporation, watch, look for trends and look for ways to help help your team members stay healthy. Mandate PTO. There's this kind of adage that this unlimited PTO model where a lot of companies allow to do that, but then what ends up happening is that studies have shown that people actually end up taking less time when they have unlimited PTO. So go against the grain, try something new, get your leadership online, the CEO and the board, to get everybody on a line to try something new, so that you can tie it to, the health of the team members, and then ultimately tie it to business results. That's what matters.
Great advice. And for aspiring entrepreneurs in healthcare, what's one piece of advice you wish someone had given you early in your journey?
Don't be afraid to start something new. I think people many many years kind of sit on the sidelines and they just sort of keep doing the same thing, and they're concerned about starting a new company or a new idea, or putting a team together to go chase after some sort of market. Don't be afraid to do it. The your future self will never forgive your current self for not taking that chance. So do it.
Awesome. Again, great advice. So, Drew, before I wrap this up, how do people get hold of you if they're looking for some help, especially in the health sector?
Yeah, so we're looking to build relationships with financial advisors across the U.S. So if you're a financial advisor, you work for a financial advisor firm, there's about 350,000 financial advisors across the U.S. Go to movehealth.io. That's movehealth.io. Movehealth.io. You can find all the information about there. You can set up a demo for our platform. You can go through our process to see how you would implement healthcare and Medicare planning into your financial advisor practice. If you're a client and you're watching this, or excuse me, if you're just if you're somebody that's just shopping for health insurance, come to our site too. Get your financial advisor engaged. If your financial advisor is not offering, healthcare and Medicare planning, we want to meet them. You can introduce us to your financial advisor. We want to get involved, and we want to help solve, this issue that exists where people stay in their jobs that they don't have to stay in, just because of healthcare insurance. We want to solve that, and we want to help millions of people that are in that window quit their job and move into retirement and go to the next phase of their life.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Drew. Again, thank you for sharing not just your expertise, but also your passion and purpose. It's quite obvious. From transforming healthcare planning to mentoring future leaders, your work stands as an example of innovation grounded in real world impact. To our listeners, if you're a company leader thinking about your healthcare strategy or an aspiring founder in the health tech space, there's a lot to learn from Drew's journey. Make sure to check out Move Health and follow Drew for more insights on leadership, entrepreneurship, and digital health transformation. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Boardsi Leadership Talks. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Until next time, lead boldly and think strategically. Thank you, Drew.
Martin, thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to Leadership Talks. Don't forget to subscribe for more insightful conversations with industry leaders. Your support means a lot to us.